I definitely want Stephen Munford to talk about sovereignty and the value of who we are, currency, and take it away.
Well, Mel, some of you might not know my background. My name is Steven Munford. I currently sit on the City of Las Vegas Planning Commission for Ward 5. And for the past several years, I've worked for a large development company. They're currently doing about $1 billion of ground up development over in North Las Vegas, all the way from downtown North Las Vegas up to the old Texas Station site on Rancho and Lake Mead. I brought that company in. I introduced them to North Las Vegas. I helped them locate their first shopping center, which they acquired for 10 million. It's probably worth close to 50, 60 million today. And the main reason prior to working for them, I was more into the residential side. So I worked with them to learn commercial. Basically, I was like, I might as well get paid to learn commercial instead of, and I did. I got to watch how they operate and a lot of things that they've done. Agora, one of the things they've done really in our community is they've taken advantage of the opportunity zones, which were created back when Trump was first elected in his first term. The opportunity zones were actually created by Barack Obama and Senator Cory Booker. And in his second term, the Republicans vowed to block all of Barack's legislation, and that was one of them. When Trump was elected, Cory, understanding that Trump was a real estate guy, and he took it to Trump, and Trump bid on it and got it passed. And so, and that we call that, and they're called opportunity zones, or what we call today OZ1. And when that was passed, each governor was allowed to pick these zones for where these opportunity zones are for. And what these opportunity zones provide, Cory made it for economically challenged areas. So what it does, it provides a carrot stick to the rich or to people who have a lot of capital gains that they're trying to get out of. And so, and when you invest into an OZ fund for a certain area, that allows you to defer your taxes and your capital gains for up to 10 years. In that first selection by the governor here in the state of Nevada, the Raider Stadium, the south end of Las Vegas Boulevard, where the Major League Baseball stadium's going up now, OZ funds. All around UNLV, that was an OZ zone area. And then parts of Ward 5, the old West Las. But they left out from Bonanza, where the Moulin Rouge is, all the way up to Edmonds Shopping Center, up to Owens. That whole section is left out. And I was in a meeting Tuesday with the Planning Commission, and right now they're planning a lot of redevelopment zones. So I think at Nellis, East Maryland Parkway, and the Charleston corridor from Durango all the way down into East Las Vegas on Charleston, that's all being planned for redevelopment. And in the meeting, because the city planner was doing a presentation of that, I asked him that question, and I pulled up the map of the current OZ zones, and I said, "Do you realize that whole Charleston corridor isn't even in the OZ zone?" And a lot of those homes, and those are older homes that were built in the 70s and stuff. And I said, for whatever reason, the governor missed that whole section. And I showed him, I said Ward 5, So coming up, probably in about a year, and I don't know if it's after the governor's election, where, with Lombardo and Aaron, going for that seat, hopefully Aaron gets it. But the new governor will be able to pick those zones. So we need to make sure, because when they first passed it, I remember It might have been through Katie. I seen they were having something at the Pearson Center about opportunity zones. So I went there, and when I went there, they had already picked the OZ zones. I was like, yeah, it was already picked. They just kind of, you're like, oh, by the way, these are the OZ zones. And at that time, I didn't know, I didn't really understand it, even though, like I said, and this was about the same time I just started with Agora. And then as I sat down in meetings with Agora, I heard them talking about their OZ, and then I was like, oh, so they're and they, like I said, Agora themselves, they have close to $1 billion in their OZ fund for development on the border of the historic West, are cutting, right there. So that's when I started to look into the OZ, and you can go on the website.
Yeah, this is the old one, I think, but kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you can go onto a website, and you can actually pull up lists of OZ funds across the country. Some of these OZ funds have anywhere from $250,000 in them, all the way up to $800 million in them. And what right now, I'm still schooling myself, because there's different. If you're going to establish an OZ fund, you have to understand SEC regulations when you're raising capital. You have, is it qualified investors? Can non-qualified investor has to be worth a certain amount of money. Unqualified investor is below that threshold. Are they allowed to invest in OZ funds? How do you keep the accounting so that all those people who have invested can go ahead and claim their, so there's different things that you have to take in consideration when you start that OZ fund. But what I found is that these OZ funds are being utilized. They're being utilized in all types of communities, because it's not just economically challenged areas. And one of the things I learned when I was working with Agora, their shopping center, that first shopping center, and you can use OZ funds for development, ground up. You can use them for acquisition. So if you want to buy a property, you can use them for acquisition and renovations, and businesses. Small businesses can use OZ funds. That first shopping center that Agora bought, that is an OZ fund. And a lot of the renovations and the TIs that I was involved in, a lot of that was funded with OZ fund money.
Wow.
Kerry Lefton's the owner of Agora. He's a sharp guy, but he's just a guy, and he's learned how to utilize the OZ funds. I think Kerry's Jewish, so I think he's gone to his own Jewish, because whenever I was around him, he was always calling out to New York City. I think that's where he was getting a lot of his capital for investments through the OZ fund, probably from the Jewish community. I looked at the Jewish community, but I have a community too called the African American community. and we have money, but we don't have anywhere to direct that money to. And so that an OZ fund is something that we could organize and direct that money to. When I was working with them in their shopping centers, and we had Black-owned businesses in our shopping centers, the number one reason a Black-owned business ever failed in one of our shopping centers, they didn't have access to capital. They didn't. Like there was a Thai restaurant, and I know at times it was struggling, but they always seemed to get over the hump. But I think it's because they had access to capital. Darlene coined the term economic sovereignty. A lot of groups, to me, right in the city, globally, they have what I call the term economic sovereignty. And really, when I talk about economic sovereignty, it's really having access to capital as a group.
Right.
A lot of times when we go into a bank or we go into different places, the person across the desk doesn't look like us. Not saying that they're racist, but just because, give you an example. I used to work with this lady. She's a Korean lady, and she's here in Vegas. Her name is Sandra Dice. The Ahern Hotel, which was originally, I think it was called the Golden Dragon.
Yeah.
That was funded by she helped fund that project through EB-5 money, and that she raised over in Asia. And so one time I was sitting at lunch with her, and this was when I just started working with Agora. She knew I was getting in the commercial. She threw me a bone, and I didn't. I bluffed and I said, "Yeah, maybe I could help you." And she goes, "Steve, if you could find me 300, 400 unit apartment complexes in about 10 days or so, I could have $20 million in the country for acquisition." Just by her picking up the phone, calling over to Korea or China, and she would have $20 million sitting in front of, for acquisition. And I didn't know how to farm those or anything, but what blew me away is how quick she could have that capital from her own people. And so to me, that's what I call economic sovereignty. When we look at Chinatown, I was with an Asian gentleman down there one time, and he was pointing at this restaurant, and he goes, "Oh, they have that franchise here." And I was looking at it as like, there ain't no franchise I ever heard of. It's not a McDonald's. It's not a Popeyes. No, 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 no. That's a franchise through Asia and in the different Asian communities here in the States. They have their own franchise restaurants. And one thing I learned about commercial, when you buy a commercial property, the best way to buy that commercial property is already have tenants that have signed LOIs for that property. So when they buy that property, all those franchises across the Asian community, they all sign up and say, "We're putting up a shop there." In the Black community, we could do the same thing. We have a lot of success just here in Vegas. Devin Moore, um, Trina, different people. They have successful restaurants. We could do that. We could set up a whole corridor just like that, and already have leases signed with successful Black-owned restaurants. And so that's my vision in terms of economic sovereignty, where our churches, I've been saying, a lot of times, and Pastor West, he does a good job of getting our young people involved in the churches. I coached at Mojave and taught at Mojave for a while, and I walked in his church one time, and I seen some of my players sitting in there, and I was happy for them because I knew what they were into, and it wasn't good all the time. And I was glad they were sitting in this church. And when I see stuff like that, after I left Mojave, I coached at Faith Lutheran, and Faith Lutheran is a Lutheran high school, but you don't have to be Lutheran to go there. But if anybody were to ask me where should I send my kid to school, I would say without hesitation, if you got the money, send them to Faith. When I coached football at Faith, versus when I was at Mojave. When I was at Mojave and grades would come out, probably 50% of our athletes were failing. At Mojave, when we did grades, it was like a celebration because 90% of the student athletes on our football team had a 3-point grade point average or better. And the challenge for us as coaches, we try to convince them to play college football, and they look at you crazy like, "I'm going to Harvard." I ain't worried about no football. But I've always said, why not take somebody like Pastor West and start up our own version of Faith Lutheran in the Black community? We would have a hell of a football team and basketball team. Because at Faith, they don't let you recruit. And that's what I liked about them, because we would have to coach our kids up and really teach them how to play. But if I could take our own kids, a lot of our kids are good athletes, and I had them horses, we'd be Gorman every year. But I'm just saying, with opportunity zone money and stuff like that, you can realistically talk about doing stuff like that. And so, again, to me, that's my version of economic sovereignty. Malcolm X, long time, he talked about Black nationalism. And really, this is in a way Black, but I coined it economic sovereignty because every group, like the Asian community, East Indians, the Jewish community, they have an economy inside of this economy. I'm also part Native American. Yeah. the Native American community is really shook up with what's going on with Trump because a lot of tribes depended on federal dollars. That was part of their treaty. And now that's being threatened. The tribes that have economic sovereignty, I was talking to Benny Toe, he's the tribal chairman for the Las Vegas Paiutes. And then they have the golf course out north called Snow Mountain Golf Course. That's their Snow Mountain reservation out there. And I was asking Benny, how is this Trump thing affecting you? And he said, we're okay, Steve. Well, they have their dispensary, they have their golf course, and now they have plans on opening up a full resort casino and hotel out at their golf course. So, yeah, the federal dollars they may be missing out on, it doesn't affect them now. When I talk to the Mawapa Paiutes, 30 miles out of town, they have their travel lodge, but they don't have the same economic sovereignty as just 30 miles away with their brothers and sisters here in Las Vegas, another band of Paiutes, because they depended more on those federal dollars. And even with us, we have elected officials that look like us in this state. We have them in the legislature. We have, I'm sitting on a planning commission. Our new councilwoman from Ward 5, Summers Armstrong, she's sitting. We have Commissioner McCurdy. We have different people, but still, even on the political side, we have the political side, but we don't have the economic side. That's really what we're missing. What Mel just showed with that, those are the types of projects that we, and also too, churches being involved. A lot of people, sometimes churches do get scrutinized by our own people. They're not doing enough in our community. They're not doing this. And, and sometimes the people that are saying that, I'll ask them, I'll be like, well, what are you doing? Because, and I say that because we all could do more at the end of the day. But a lot of times too, we don't know how, we don't have the instruments. That's why we formed this group, kind of a mastermind group, so that we can throw these ideas around, so we can get a vision. If you ever talk, one of the things I used to like about Steve Wynn, he always talks about, when he's talking about, he puts a story to it and he puts a vision to it. You look at all his hotels, there'll be a story and a vision, and that's what he sells to his investors.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think we need to develop. And then, like I said, we need to develop that story. We need to develop that vision. And then we need to understand how to and it's just not opportunity zone money. When Trump passed this big, beautiful bill, if you want to call it, there is a lot of things in there for real estate and small business. If you buy a building right now, before, when you bought that building, you could take the tax depreciation on it over so many years. Now, when you buy it, you can take it the first year, and that's huge.
The whole first year?
The first year. So if you bought a $3 million building, and say your tax benefit for depreciation is $600,000, before you would have to might take that over 20 years. Now you can take that the first year, and every year after that.
Okay.
It doesn't depend on what type of depreciation you use. There's three types of use,
That's a question for my CPA.
All right.
But like I said, and that's the other thing too. In our community, we have talent. We have talented people. Mel Green. I mean, and when it's in real estate, I mean, I've seen Mel write up renderings and stuff for free if you had a good idea, and that's huge, because usually you get those renderings, man, that's about $20,000 right there.
Yeah.
And so we have talented people, we have smart people in our community, we have business people in our community, we have, and really that's what other ethnic groups do. They get everybody together, and we form in a way, our own master plan on how we're going to proceed together and network together and do biz. I mean, I think that's how you start in terms of, we always hear, I hear people on Facebook talking, support Black businesses, this, that, and the other. That's great. But I think you need, kind of like what the Asians are. Yeah, you need that foundation, that group that, I mean, like I said, and then also too, in part of this group, we have people from Africa.
Mhm. Mhm.
There is no reason that the biggest thing that we're missing is our African connection. There are more millionaires being created in Africa than anywhere in the world right now. It's one of the fastest growing emerging markets in the world. And we probably got relatives who are millionaires over there, long lost cousins who are millionaires. And Africans are looking to do business. One thing I learned from some of the Asian and Chinese business people that I know is that the reason why you have so much money, and it's just not, I mean, Brazil, from the Middle East, a lot of foreign money comes in here for investments because this country is looked at as a stable place to keep your money and your investments. Some countries, one day they're stable and the next day they're in civil war. Hopefully we won't be in the way things are going. But for a long time, this country has looked at stability. And in Africa, I guarantee it's no different. There are Africans who would like to get their money out of their country and get it into a stable market. And a lot of the Africans I talk to, they would love to do business with us. But we got to be organized. We got to have projects. We got to have different, like that. They would love to invest in something like that, If we ever were able to create a big enough fund, you see what's happening on the strip right now. They're losing money. And and everybody talks about how expensive it is to stay at one of these hotels. What the hotel industry on the strip has done is they've done the same thing that the airlines have done. When you buy a ticket, then there's fees on top of the ticket, and that's what the hotel industry here in Vegas has done. The Seminoles out of Florida that own the Hard Rock, they bought the Mirage. They're not a publicly traded company. So if you were able to come like the Seminoles and buy a strip hotel, you could go old Vegas and undercut everybody. That's right. Because you don't have to report profits to Wall Street. That's why they do what they do. They're publicly traded now, and now they got to report profits, or else they'll start losing investor money. But somebody that is a private company, and they were able to buy a strip hotel. Now you could go old Vegas. You could have, I don't know, some of you, back in I miss old Vegas. If you knew the floorman that was standing there, oh, you want a free? Yeah, here you go. Yeah, they would write you up a free meal,
Yeah.
or something like that. That was old Vegas, And nowadays, oh, let me check your points.
Right.
They're at the so, and people are kind of tired of that. Yes, sir. So, but like I said, I kind of digress. But like I said, that's kind of my vision when I spoke to Darlene and stuff. And well, my whole thing when it comes to economic sovereignty is that we have to develop a financial base. I mean, even if we start out small, like I said, and the thing about it too, I don't want to have like one. My whole thing is not having one opportunity zone fund. Really, when I got into real estate, yeah, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to gain wealth through real estate, but I also want to teach our people how to gain wealth through real estate. All my mentors in real estate have been white. When I first learned how to flip houses, Gene Burns, who was a white dude, we met at a seminar, and he lived here in Vegas. He kind of took me under his wings, and he taught me how to flip homes and how to evaluate all, the whole thing. And I say that because back on the reservation I grew up on, nobody could have taught me that. And I didn't know anybody over in the Westside or any in my father's circle or anybody that could teach me that. There probably was, but at that time there was no. And then, like I said, and then when I went into commercial, I worked for a white-owned company to learn commercial. And I say all this because I want us to learn how to raise that capital. And so if anybody gets involved and they learn we set up, say we set up this first OZ fund. I want everybody to learn how to set up their own OZ fund. The churches need to learn how to set up OZ funds. Black business people need to learn, because this OZ 2.0, it doesn't expire. So until somebody else comes along and cuts it out, it's there forever. And so in terms of raising capital, and in terms of, like I was talking about, the tax advantages in real estate, and there's also a lot of tax advantages set in this bill for small businesses. We need to compile all that information. That's probably the one thing Black people, we don't get access to, is that information. What was in this BBB bill, and really what happened in that first OZ 1.0 is, in a way, we were left out of it, because nobody, like I said, I was learning about it when they had already set up the zones. And then I started learning more about it from my employer, who was using OZ zones and funds. And so, we all know there's that learning curve. And so I was trying to wrap my head around it, and I've been around them long enough. Now I understand how they utilize that.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. And so with OZ 2.0, and it's not just OZ 2.0, like I said, getting international investors, getting a flow of money coming in international. You could probably wrap your head around too about how to establish what we might need to establish an OZ fund. Because the biggest thing about that OZ fund is the people have to trust.
Absolutely.
The investors have to trust. I mean,
what's the role of the church in this? And I'm asking the question from this perspective. Like yourself, I'm in a lot of stuff. I'm in a lot of meetings. I know a lot of Black people with a lot of money, but Black people don't do church. So I'm asking, what's the role of the church at the table? How much square footage is your church?
5,500.
5,500. Nehemiah is 6,000 square feet. At our peak, we had a 12,000 square foot square. I scratch my head when I watch communities be built. And I'm always curious, okay, I look at communities in Las Vegas, there's an LDS church. How did that happen? Mm-hmm. And then we build communities, but there's no church. And so we start naming all the political candidates. I go, man, they got the office through church. They got the office through the church. And then we get to office, these monies come to the table, but I'm watching Hatch, going, Hatch ain't built yet. I haven't built yet. And so should we be at the table with our 501c3? Or should we be at the table right now strictly with a business hat? Because it's a part of me right now at 20 years in ministry, and I'm going, if I don't put on a full-fledged business hat, I will be obsolete at the table. Watch them going. I never, when we talk our community, and we're talking business and churches, I never use the word all. That I hate when we say all. I don't know if I have the energy nor the time left to bring everybody together. And so I don't. And so I have to work with who's at the table. So when we come to the table, even when I got the first call, I said, I will come to a table. Hold on, let me just make this so we're clear. I will come to the table with what resources I have. But I don't have resources to build that. I don't. And so which makes me ask the question, what's my role at the table?
Our goal with, like I said, that's why I bring up opportunity zones, and our goal is where a church can come to this fund or be involved in this fund and now have access to capital to do something like that. I would even, that's why I put that out there about all of us learning how to set up these opportunity zones. The churches and also understanding how to set those up. Because you like when I seen that list, you have all sides of these funds. You have, like I said, $250,000 funds all the way up to hundreds of millions of dollars. Out of this group, we could form a large opportunity zone, and then other funds branch off to that. We can find investors out of Africa, and you may want to expand your church into Africa.
I'm in a lot of meetings, and I watch this. We start off wonderful, but for some reason, people forget about the church.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind. People forget about us. And I have watched my people, Black people, come up financially.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched them. We were splitting hot links together. We were sharing Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the porterhouse steak and the Dom Perignon,
Mm-hmm.
and now you forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a problem I have.
Well,
I'm still sitting here because I like what is being said. This is where God put me, and this is where I'm supposed to sit. So we show that we're organized, we're together, we have,
we have the vision.
we have the vision.
And that's why I mentioned, and I've said this about you and other Black, like Vernon Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Vernon, he's done a lot with youth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've mentioned in the same breath with both of you, we should be looking to fund our own. I was teaching at Mojave one time when I was in a history class, and my father taught history. When you walk in my father's class, he'd have Malcolm and he'd have Gandhi and he'd have all these, so that these kids could know that they were involved in history, no matter what race or ethnic group you came from. Your people were involved in history.
Mm-hmm.
I went into this history class. All they had was pictures of dead presidents.
That's right.
And one picture of MLK.
That's right.
And I was sitting there thinking, what? And Mojave's predominantly Black.
That's right.
And I'm thinking, what are our kids getting taught?
Mm-hmm.
That's
right. And that's why I mentioned the pastor and Vernon and starting our own Black faith Lutheran type school, so that we can take responsibility of educating our own kids.
Okay.
That's got to, when he's talking about the church,
Mm-hmm.
that's so, if you look at, whether, Malcolm was Muslim, but still it was a church and it was inside of our community and there was principles. And then you had MLK that was teaching principles all around God. And so I'm coaching their young, that's one of the reasons I left faith. I left Mojave, because the coaches, they would let our kids cuss, say the N-word and stuff while I'm coaching. And when I played, if you said that kind of stuff, you were running miles, or you were kicked off of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Vernon, when he was running Faith Lutheran,
yeah.
I remember we were sitting in doing film and watching, and I kind of got excited. I said, "See, this is the shit I'm talking about." And Vernon goes, "No, slow down, folks. We don't talk like that around here." But I like that. I enjoyed coming to practice because I didn't have to listen and see our Black kids being coached the way they're being coached.
And I think that's one of the main important aspects of trying to bring this idea to the church communities, because we have to start thinking about how we can start building our own systems in the medical field, how we can care for our children when they come into the world, how to educate them. I believe education starts from when you're pregnant and until they're 25. We have to give them the space and the place. Not saying that we're not, or some communities not, but how can we do it on a mass level? And there's a lot of churches that have land, the historic Westside have land. Like, how can we bring it together, and how can we like really design, like sit down? Nobody, I don't have all the answers, but we got the answers.
We have a
Yeah, we
collective
have-
group
You know what I'm
that
saying?
can
We got
input.
the answers. Somebody, you know what I'm saying? Your church, somebody in there. There's professionals. We have professionals in every area now. There's no excuse. We just need to organize.
Charles Barkley, I was just watching a video, and I remember when I coach, and I watch parents. In the Black community, we have a culture that sports is going to set us free, our entertainment. And when we talk about China, I watched this video about China, and it went through where China is today. And when Mao Zedong was running China, it was a poor country.
Mhm.
Xi Jinping took over. He was a reformist. And what he did with his people is he took over the education. He made it a point that everybody in China would have access to in China to learn science, technology, all those things that would make them competitive in the world. I think as Black people, we need to have that same program and that same mindset. It can't just, athletics is great. But like Charles Barkley said, I'm an anomaly.
That's right.
Yeah.
My dad was on the court with Wilt and Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. But because he had an injury, he couldn't, but he had his degree.
That's right.
That's how he ended up in Vegas doing the things.
Mhm.
God had another plan. And so our kids have to understand that. If you're athletically inclined, great. Have fun doing that. But we have to get in their mind that you, and I remember this brother, he was going to school at Mojave, Trayvon. And Trayvon, he could have played basketball. I remember I tried to get him to go out for the team. And Trayvon, he kids will be honest. He's like, Coach, I just like smoking weed too much. But I remember I showed Trayvon. I said I showed him. I said, man, you can get an A in this PE class, and we had him write an essay, and so he wanted to get the A. When I got that motivation in him, he had the best essay out of anybody in the class, and that showed me that mine hadn't been unlocked.
Because nobody steals the answer to Pastor Kelsey's question.
Yes.
We're talking.
We're gonna get to it. I know.
No, everybody's talking around. Anybody addressed it, right? And so, because here's the thing I will say, and so Pastor Kelsey and I are on different boards. We meet with all kinds of people all the time. In a sense, to have a chair at the table, probably more than anything else, we have a seat at the table. Okay, there's a genuine concern and care that both of him and I have for the well-being of our people and people in general. We oversee people's lives. We believe God people spiritually. So that's our ultimate goal. So ultimately, the church is always left out a lot of times, especially in the African American community. They talk about the church. They say we're going to do this, but they don't actually do anything for the church. And it's been historic. Other than I'm from Washington, D.C., and I watched things happen different in D.C. When I grew up in D.C., Mayor Walter Washington and Marion Barry, they did some things for the church, literally. But what he's saying is that you really think about it, we're here, but we're here because people know us, people know what we represent, people know that we genuinely care, and in a sense they take advantage of, right? Which is not always bad, because but the idea is that he just asked a simple question, and nobody's answering. We're talking around it.
I'll be honest. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Because I don't know what does the church need?
That's okay. That's okay.
What does the church?
No, I got you. But what I'm saying is that okay, because it happens all the time. From the standpoint, he asks a basic question, and everybody's talking around it, right? I'm like, well, when are you gonna ask the question? Even if it's your opinion, all I got to do just an opinion. An opinion is just fine. You don't have to give a concrete answer. I don't really know. Okay, that's fine. So, but then that's something everybody needs to think about when we come back. Mel and I go back 30 years. His wife is one of my best female friends. I mean, we got connections here, right? But the idea is that as he brought that up, it made me think, wow, all these years I've been involved with public service and government and law enforcement. It's like they utilize my knowledge and what I have to offer, but nobody's really given any real credence to what the church is the foundation of society, or of at least a community, right? And so in that community, our voice makes a big difference when we're there to talk. But nobody, I hate to use the word compensate, but I'm gonna say compensate. What we bring to the table.
So when the question is asked, what's the ask? Whether it's in commercial property, whether it's through development of a community. When I asked Pastor Hatch how much square footage does he have, right now, I'm assuming, do you pay rent or you own that space? Okay, so watch this. So from a rent perspective, some of your most effective churches in the community, we talking boots on the ground. I'm not talking just preaching on Sunday. I'm talking cats who work in 7 days a week. We're paying rent. You take us out of that rent situation, that's economics that we could use to do even more. So when we're building I don't know. I would love for somebody to tell me what would it cost to build he has 5,000. Let's just double our square footage. What would it cost to build a 10,000 square foot box? Box.
For
Hmm?
general, I think we put a gentleman there.
But I'm just thinking
to
it costs
answer.
10 million.
That's what we trying to get.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know.
No. Watch what I'm sharing. People invite us to tables, and then when people ask us questions, we're invited to tables. So now we're presenting a case on behalf of the church. Whether you answer it or not, I'm not asking you to really answer it. I just want you to know where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
And so he says he's from DC. I'm from Michigan. I only know how to play one way. That's cards face up. I'm never going to come to the table and beat around the bush. I have been to meetings. I have been used, abused, scammed, robbed, shot up close.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I still got to serve God through the church.
Mhm.
So my statement was, and watch
Go
this,
ahead.
that's no disrespect to the people here. I'm talking about a good chunk of people in our community don't do church. And so when plans are being made, they're making plans for any and everything, but how do we establish a church in our community? Whether that church is just, because some people just see church as a place to go worship on Sunday. And to your point, our churches, there's job training,
Mhm.
there's programs during the week, it's your after school care, for some of us it's daycare.
I thought I kind of addressed that when I mentioned, even, starting a school
Mhm.
involve, a school with, that's a Black church involved, where it serves that community. A lot of the stuff that you're talking about, having that school, education. I think that's why, in terms of the church's role in this, that's why I mentioned that, because when I ran for the state senate at that time, I went through a lot of Black churches. I didn't see a lot of young people in there.
Mhm.
And when I went into your church, I did.
Mhm.
So that's why I mentioned, the church get involved in education, just like the Lutheran church is involved in education in this city. The Catholic church is doing their thing. I would want to find money to get the Black church involved in the education side and getting more of our kids
Right.
involved in that type of system. But like I said, I don't know exactly, and that's why we have everybody here, because we all have a vision, our vision of our journey and where we want to end up with what we're involved in. And that's why the foundation is to raise that capital.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go up to Utah,
Mhm.
which when you go to Utah is a Mormon state. That's the religion in Utah. Religiously, the Mormons give to that church. And the programs that they have, and I mean, if they have some of the best mental health programs. I went to this one. It was a public school. I thought it was like a Gorman. They had 5 gyms. That state invests in education like crazy, and a lot of that has to do around the Mormon Church.
Right.
So I mean that's that's the kind of vision I'm trying to understand of what you.
So I think
Well,
the ultimate. Well, I'm sorry.
They built the community around that.
Yeah.
Nevada Federal Credit Union, they started with 5 members. And they was putting $5 in each month, and they was able to utilize them to help themselves. And now they're multi-trillion-dollar bank.
So watch this. I'm not questioning how it works. My position, my job as a pastor of a church is just to make sure I say what I say.
But I want everybody at the table to
So,
benefit.
no, I get it. So the other thing is because I hear some things come out, which is, it's all good because ultimately we want to bring awareness to everybody, right? Just be aware. That's all. Because the thing is that I'm a real estate appraiser. I had the largest minority owned appraisal company in the whole state for years until 2015 when, another story. But anyway, so my real estate acumen has benefited many of these programs. I understand, valuation and districting and land use planning, whatever. The other thing is that so when you think about like one of you said how you look at it as worship. Well, I'm over in Cambridge, and whether you know it or not, Cambridge, the median income for a single family household just went up to 13,775. The median income for a 3-person household just went up to 21,400. Right? That's slave wages in today's time. So not only, but then let me add this: we have a 37% adult illiteracy. So imagine 37% of the adults are illiterate, they function illiterate. So what I have to do? I went to Clark County School District, got permission to teach the GED in our church. And if we normally don't do that, but we know your demographic. But you have to do something for us. So tell me what you want. We want to be able to teach English as a second language because we have a program at Cambridge Community Center. However, the gang activity is making the Hispanics and whoever else feel uncomfortable. No problem. We do it at my church. Those kind of things where we're talking about, I wouldn't say just not really so much outreach, or just foundational information. But so I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of I'm gonna say ground zero for every community at a certain level, that needs to be considered. Like what I'm saying is considered, right? Because they'll utilize our understanding, they'll utilize our connections and those kind of things. However, but when it comes to really, when you look at, I like what Mel did with the one in Liberty City, fifth floor, got church in the community, and I'm thinking the very next city over is Overtown, right? And they got the same situation. That's somebody that needs to be duplicated, where you have, that kind of consideration of the people about, and the leader is nothing else, right? Because when you got people, I remember a guy had taken hostages. Only person I'm gonna talk to is Pastor so and so. Pastor so and so got him out to the street, and whatever the case may be, because people just take it for granted. Is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And from that perspective, needs to be considered.
I think most people who come to the table, they come with an individual perspective.
I appreciate what he's saying, and guess what? We shall see. I'm gonna come back because I also have had a 4 o'clock. But let me just share this. When I say Black people aren't doing church, I'm not even on doctrine. I'm not even on that stuff. What I'm saying is this: Black people know. There's a reason I was asked to be here.
Sure.
Black people know what I do in the community beyond preaching on Sundays. And what I'm saying is, I'm surrounded by Black people with money. So when I say Black people don't do church, Black people, some Black people with money, if I open a restaurant, a record label, it's a good chance I will get an investment more than I would with the promise to help me get a building.
Yeah.
Even though, watch where I'm going. Forget the Sunday stuff. Black people gonna call me for my Black college store. We talking about school. Black people know I didn't put these kids through these HBCUs. Write a check. Give me a building, a house, and stuff. Black people come to the meetings. And so from a business standpoint, watch this. I get it. Because when I sit with Caucasian people, I give my checks. When I sit with my Jewish friends, I give my checks. And so at the end of the day, I got the money, but I'm frustrated because I'm going, man, how come my people won't give me this check? To help our people.
I'm just going by the spirit. That's why we're here.
Let's make it happen.
We'll get the check.
Let's make it happen.
We'll get the check. We'll get there. Trust me.
That's
Rome
all.
wasn't built overnight, right?
This is a good start.
No,
I really appreciate everybody coming in.
I completely understand.
You know what I'm saying? Don't. Amen.
And the reason
Experience that in a lot of our different sectors of business and industry.
Yeah.
A lot of
that's what this is all about.
That's what I'm saying.
Really, that's the message in this whole thing is trying to consolidate our dollar, so that everybody that looks like us gets to feel the circulation of that dollar. And through the years, I mean, our people through the years have gone through hell. I'm a Malcolm guy. Malcolm always said that the biggest crime that happened to us as a people wasn't so much the beatings and the rapes and all the stuff physically that they did to us. It's what they did to our minds. We don't think, like Pastor was saying, we don't think it's a black church, so we don't think black.
Mhm.
So we don't spend black, we don't support black.
Right.
We support everybody else except black.
And
We
And
got
we
to
gotta
think
and that
it's black.
trust
So
is
when
not there.
so when I
It's
say,
trust.
watch this. When I say church, let's so we have a real definition of that. When I'm saying church, I see Black Boys and Girls Club. When I see
Mhm.
church,
Yeah.
I see Black Catholic Charities. When I see
Community,
church,
community,
that's what I see.
community. Absolutely,
Village.
brother. That's what I'm.
That's what I see.
Man,
So I'm not talking building
No.
with a cross on the top.
right?
Mhm.
Yes.
That's not what I'm saying.
But
Yeah.
you putting in the work. You are the church.
Yeah.
But hear me when I say it.
He's talking about service to
I'm
the
talking-
community.
yeah.
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 So when we're building,
Mhm.
when I'm watching
That's what church is supposed to
the
do.
render-
serve the
Yeah.
community.
the renderings,
Mhm.
I'm going, man, we could have slipped in a 10,000 square foot building with ease,
Mhm.
and that building would have had multi-purposes.
Mhm.
And so instead of that church paying this white guy rent, that rent could have went back here, or we could give this church a better loan where you can rent to own.
Mhm.
Let's play Monopoly.
Yes.
What is it about? That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's what this is about.
Because
That's better.
we have to think of creative ways on how we can serve our community, because we have to take care of our children, our medical, everything, every system.
I want to start a system where we hold everybody accountable.
Uh-huh. So what you want me to get names?
No.
You don't want me to get names. It's gonna break.
Well, and a lot of things, and like I said, I've been to Pastor's church,
Yeah.
and I know about his HBCU.
Mhm.
I'm guilty of not supporting it the way it should be, because what happened, and that's kind of why I'm putting this whole thing together, so we are connected,
Right.
and because we all start going on our different journeys, and we lose track of what is actually going on in our own community.
Yeah. And
I mean, you're talking about HB, well, and Freddie Banks, he had his basketball tournament for HBCUs.
Mhm.
So there's so many things, and I think that's what Pastor saying. We have to look at how we look at the things that are already in place in terms of service,
Yeah.
and how we can enhance that.
Yeah.
So, what's next?
We have another meeting. I mean, like I said,
Wednesdays.
we have Wednesday. We have meetings at Wednesday.
Here.
Yeah.
Well, or you can come on.
Or you can be on
Zoom,
Zoom.
you can do Zoom. And the whole thing about this is, like I said, we're developing a mastermind group. We have developers, we have architects, we have clergy now. We have, and so, and like I said, my ultimate goal really is to develop a group so that we can develop our own fund, our own fund.
Yes. We don't have to ask.
And like I said, and we develop our own lobby, because when the governor picks
That's
that,
right.
we need to make sure there's zones, all that stuff.
I was supposed to be here today.
I knew you were supposed to be here. Thank you so much, Steven Munford. I appreciate you for always.
Man, I like the way you talk to me.
So, thank you.
I appreciate you.
This wouldn't be happening for us. You get it.